I will let Andrew Farrell tell you a little bit more about that. But first, I would love to introduce our guests for this evening's wrap-up, Blue Seed. This is Dan, Max, and Sam from Blue Seed, and we're really happy to have them here. We're going to just ask Andrew to tell us a little bit about today's Startup Idol, and then we'll let Blue Seed take over and tell us about what they're doing. Andrew?
Well, we've made it through 2 of 4 days for the starting 64. Let's see here. It went a lot smoother here. Little quirks, and it came out a lot better today. We're actually 32 of the 64. Okay. So we'll be back tomorrow and Friday to get through the last 32. And so we need to announce. There we go. So the winners today are MyTab, Rexio, Motivate My City, Liftport Group, Trent Me, Kachingle, Crowd Salesforce, Epic Level, and help me with the last one.
Cytosoft.
Cytosoft Corporation. So
I think our home viewers would benefit from just hearing, really quickly what Startup Idol is and what you're trying to accomplish here.
Well, Startup Idol is basically Idol for startups, American Idol for startups. It is a virtualized Silicon Valley pitch contest, so people can participate wherever they're at in the world, live with judges that are also anywhere in the world. It is an experience you can do here in Silicon Valley in a physical space every day, 6 times a day, and you can't do that hardly anywhere else in the world. So we decided to bring that out to the masses and bring them in. We realized in doing that it changes it a little, because in a physical location you can only get so many people in that building, but over the web you can get millions. So we realized this is for people who have launched and are looking for traction. So we added a gamification layer to reward the home audience to sign up with the different startups, try out their products, and provide them feedback. Every startup needs feedback. The color blue doesn't work there. I can't log in. It's too complicated. My character doesn't pull out the machine gun when it needs to. Whatever it is that you need to get feedback for, you get enough of that feedback, you change it. So it's the early adopters can really make a difference to these startups. And the startups are going through and getting a lot of helpful advice from our professional judges, telling them what to do. So we're all about helping startups succeed through traction, and we get the traction through BeInToo's gamification layer to reward the home audience with actual real goods. So that's what we do.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew. The goal is to get 100,000 startup users for the startups that are participating. So that goal is for May 1st, but of course we would love to hit it before then. With that being said, I'm going to move on and let Blue Seed talk about some of the really exciting things that they're doing. I know you guys have been interviewed by the media a lot lately, and I'm going to let you tell us about what you're doing. So whoever wants to take over.
So there's a lot of entrepreneurs around the world who would love to come to Silicon Valley to start a great company, maybe the next Google, the next Facebook. But right now they have a very difficult time doing that because it's it's onerous, it's expensive, and it's time consuming to get the proper work visas to be able to come to Silicon Valley and start a company. Sure. We just don't have a system designed for startups. Our system is designed for a different era where large companies were bringing people in and such, but not an economy ruled and dominated by innovative, awesome, creative startups and creative founders. So what we're doing is we're creating a space 12 miles off the coast of California, right here off the coast of Silicon Valley, for 1,000 of the world's best, most creative, most innovative, most interesting founders and startups. And they'll be positioned on the vessel, living and working there, able to come in and out of Silicon Valley on a tourist visa rather than a work visa. So when they come into Silicon Valley, they can't work here, but they can meet with investors, they can come to parties, they can come to, they can even come to events like this and share what they're doing with the world at large, while then going back on board and meeting with all the other entrepreneurs, all the other people there, an entire community dedicated to helping those companies succeed and helping those entrepreneurs scale and grow large enough to the point where it makes sense for them legally, they can and they can afford to come into Silicon Valley proper. So think of it as a gateway for people and individuals from around the world with really awesome creative ideas, help them get started until they're large enough to move into the country itself.
So that sounds wonderful, and I think, especially for our audience out here, there's a lot of people that can appreciate the value in what you're doing. So, from everyone, thank you, for doing something like that. But I'm sure our users have some questions, such as how does one apply for this, and what's going to be the process for deciding who makes it on the boat and who doesn't? Right.
So that's the fun question. So we have a lot of people. So it's a difficult problem. Let's get that straight, because you want to make sure that everybody on board is actually doing something really interesting, really awesome, and that their companies have a chance to succeed. So if you get a couple of bad apples in there, or people who aren't doing something as interesting, it would bring the whole community down. So it's very important to get the absolute highest caliber of people and ideas on board. And the best way to do that is for us to go to people whom we trust and say, who do you guys think are the best companies, the best entrepreneurs out there doing something cool, who would want to be on board, who would benefit from being on board, being in close proximity to Silicon Valley, and who would add positively to the community. So we're working with a number of companies, and we know some VCs and angels and things like that. And through those contacts, they'll be the ones to bring us the ideas. Now, there's also the direct channel. So we're going to have a number of contests, a number of ways for startups and individuals to get a hold of us directly and say, look, I'm working on this really awesome idea. It's really going to change a lot of things. It's big, disruptive, it's scalable, it's innovative, and I want to be on board for this and that and the other reason. And then we'll have a process to select those companies from a panel of people that we're putting together to do that.
Okay, so I think, that's something that I'm sure most of the home users and people around the world are most interested in, because the people that already have the connections to Silicon Valley VCs are probably not the people that, that necessarily are going to be most in need of having a community that's offshore, a community that they can access because they're not, in this area. So I think that's great, because I think that'll help you ensure quality. But also, what about, the startups in some remote corner of Russia, or parts of India, or, the rest of the world, Africa, South America? I mean, those are the people that, I think are having the roughest time getting into the States.
Well, sure. And one of the reasons we're launching Blue Seed is because we want people to come from Moscow. We want them to come from Beijing. We want them to come from Bangalore to here. And we want to be that channel through that. So if you're someone that's living there, we'd love for you to contact us. And, on our website we have a startup survey. You can tell us about your startup. Tell us, what would appeal to you about Blue Seed. Like, how long would you envision, working there and living there? What exactly project are you working on, and what is amazing about your startup that would, be appealing to us having you on board.
So as a startup yourself, what is, how are you monetizing this for yourself? And do you have investors as well?
Yes, we have a number of investors, but what makes us different from all the previous projects of a similar nature, as in building communities on the sea, is that we have a business model.
Okay.
And that model is to charge rent and take a portion of equity in startups.
Okay.
And we do this because by having equity, our interests will be aligned with those of the startups.
Sure.
They succeed, we succeed. This also lets us customize packages, and we can vary the amount of rent we charge versus the amount of equity, such that startups with less money can give us more equity. And in that sense, we invest in these startups by providing them with facilities and room and office space on board.
Okay, wow, so they're getting a room, office space. Do they have access to any kind of advisors?
Exactly.
That'd be part of the whole community.
Okay.
And we want to emphasize, not only would they have access to advisors, they'd be in a whole community of startups. People that are working on similar problems, people that are all in that mindset. They'd be living, working, you know, maybe sleeping in the room next to someone else that is working on a, that could be their customer, or maybe that could be using them. And
Sure.
Just as I heard about you guys initially and seen you grow, and I think I ran into you in a number of the different Startup Monthly and Startup Grind and things like that, and actually also talked to you about this at Funders and Founders. Yes. I heard that you all came up with the idea because of Peter Thiel's concept, and you all are materializing it and went after him. Can you give a little bit of that background and where that came from?
Sure.
And
So,
how I got that idea, because I don't. You know.
Yeah. So this is really the merging of two ideas. One is that we're all very passionate about entrepreneurship.
Right.
And we love to see new technology companies. I'm just passionate about seeing economic growth and prosperity generally. I think a lot of us are. And I see startup as the best way to get that done. So the more we can encourage that, the better. And then this idea called seasteading. So seasteading is a non-profit organization funded primarily by Peter Thiel, whose goal is to spread the idea of creating new communities and new legal systems and new spaces for doing cool stuff on the ocean.
Cool.
So building new cities on the ocean, creating new governments on the ocean. Let's say somebody has an idea that like the U.S. is doing this really well, but France is doing this other thing really well. Well, can you sort of merge these and create something new? So I used to work there. I was director of business strategy there, and my co-founder as well, he was the director of legal strategy there. And we loved this idea. We're still very passionate about it. But at least for us, we wanted to sort of concentrate on a more tangible problem that we could actually solve sometime in the next decade, rather than the very far away, grander vision of new city-states or something on the ocean. Well, let's move back. Let's solve an immediate core problem that is tangible, that we can address meaningfully. And then those other bigger questions, we're all really passionate about them. I'm really interested in it, but it's something that we've sort of pushed off to the future.
Awesome. I knew that there was something that married those two together, and I wanted to get a little more clarity about it, because the more we hear about what you're doing, the cooler it is. We want to come to the launch party on the.
You're invited.
In the city. We want to be there, and we want to say, okay, here's another question that I have is, Startup Idol is all virtual. People are coming in over video conferencing. How are people from your all's city going to be able to participate in something like this? What's the bandwidth? Because we're all about bandwidth around here. What's that all about?
We are working on having triple redundancy internet connectivity.
Triple, okay.
The first layer would be the big fat pipe, and we hope that to be an undersea cable running from Half Moon Bay, our home port, to the ship, 12 miles undersea. The second is a microwave link. We'll have a tower on shore and an antenna on the ship's mast. And these antennas would aim at each other constantly, so that we achieve maximum bandwidth between them. And the third layer would be satellite. That's the last resort, because it's expensive and slow and has high latency. And if we feel really experimental, we also want to explore the possibility of launching a mesh network of buoys in the ocean, each buoy sporting a wireless router.
Cool.
As far as we know, this hasn't been tried before, but we know a few individuals who worked in somewhat similar projects.
It's clearly been
awesome.
Very well thought out. So how far away from launching are you?
We plan to launch, if all goes well, in the third quarter of next year.
In the third quarter of next year. Okay, so do you have most of your resources lined up, and you're just kind of trying to work out, how everything would work?
So we're right now we're in the seed stage still.
Okay.
Hammering out the technical details. So, for example, know exactly which companies are going to set up the point-to-point system for transmitting data.
Okay.
How do you? So there's also a number of companies that run ferries back and forth. establishing the right relationship with the relevant government agencies, etc. So it's a matter of finishing hammering out each of those issues.
Okay.
Of course, deciding on a ship. So actually, we're working with a broker right now, and we have 16 ships that we're looking at. So still a number of them. We have to whittle that down, or maybe we'll even go with something custom built.
Okay.
In which case, it would be later. The launch date would be later than Q3 of next year, but that's still on the table. So we'd be looking at finishing hammering out these details in about a year.
Okay.
We'll be going. Essentially, what you do is you go to a bank. You say, look, I have to. I'm getting a ship. The ship costs $40 million. So I'd like to get $30 million for the ship. They give you that money. You get the rest in the form of equity. You go, you'd retrofit the ship, since, of course, one of the big problems with cruise ships is they don't have office space already built in.
Sure.
You have to retrofit, you have to do some changes, and then we can essentially drive it out there, drop anchor, a mooring, and set up shop.
So what?
I've got to just have you even considered looking at military surplus like an aircraft carrier.
We have looked at a number of such ships. One of them was recently considered for scraping. It was a nuclear power vessel. The problem is that because of the nuclear loads, it has to be cut so that the reactors can be taken out. We also know that United States is a museum ship right now, and it might be possible for us to partner with them and sort of give a new life to this ship by building a structure on it, basically our accommodation units, and preserve the hull and the rest.
Also, so like where there's a will, there's going to be a way, right?
That's the startup ethos, right?
That's right.
So what are you looking for, both from our viewers and any connections that they may have from investors that are involved with Startup Idol? What is it you need right now to make this happen?
So we're definitely looking to connect with the coolest startups out there.
Okay.
And especially if they'd be interested in being on board, because we'd like to know, what could we do to create a community that's truly compelling and interesting for them? What are their needs? A lot of that market research is what we're doing now to make sure we create an environment that's as conducive as possible to their success. But yeah, we're also looking to connect with a lot of investors and other groups and people who are interested in our projects. We may also be crowdfunding a portion of it early on. So stay tuned for that. Is what I would say.
Stay tuned for that. That's like any day now.
On our website, we have a small ongoing campaign right now, but the crowdfunding one should be really interesting to watch.
Okay.
Excellent.
Well, thank you so much for being on with us today. I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Yep.
You're welcome. And we would love to, be involved in this process and provide you with any resources that we have. I was involved with Funders and Founders. Myself was working with Anna for a few months, and I'm also very involved in the startup community. So anything that any of us can do, I think the common goal is to help startups do what they're trying to do, and that's what we're all here for. So thanks a lot.
Okay, so we're going to have the 64 startups get weeded out to the very, very top. And I'm putting y'all on the spot because we never talked about it and it just popped in my head. But we're going to have some really cool startups moving forward. Is there any chance we can have a leg up in one of your competitions for the winners?
Certainly. They are invited to apply on our website, bluesea.co. There is a section called Survey for Startups. If they apply there, we'll note that they applied via this show.
Excellent, excellent. So you get a leg up by winning Startup Idol. Awesome.
Yes, you do.
Thank you very much to Dan, to Max, to Sam, and to Andrew, of course. And I'm Arthi, and we're done with today's Startup Wrap-Up session.
We're getting an idea. Oh yes, definitely. Make sure you tune in tomorrow and Friday at 1 p.m. For the next 2 days of the starting 64. And thank you very much.